Chapter 12 of the Boy Scouts in Front of Warsaw. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kangaroo 692. The Boy Scouts in Front of Warsaw, or In the Wake of War, by George Durston. Over the Sea. Evelyn had told the truth. Professor Morris was a changed man. For the first time in all his orderly, humdrum student existence, he had to face war, and death and murder, and all the crimes that stalk through a land at such times. It had accomplished what all the arguments, all the lecturing, all the entreaties in the world would never have accomplished. Professor Morris had been shaken out of himself. There had been sleepless nights when his life looked very poor and thin and useless. What was his book? A dry thing of many pages, when he compared it to the needs of the dear children who had been so loyal and so true to him. It came to him that culture may be as selfish and as harmful as any vice there is. But Benjamin Morris was, after all, a man, and as late as it was not too late for him to humbly resolve to be a better father and a more valuable citizen, and he kept his word. Presently Ivan returned. The boy had purposely kept away until the reunited family had had time to talk everything over. When he entered, Professor Morris sat looking at him, with his eyes narrowed and a puzzled look on his face. Evelyn knew that look, and wondered what was passing in her father's mind. He sat quiet, silent, and after a little left the room. When he returned, he brought the Princess Olga, who was leading the little Rika as she dared not leave her out of her sight. "We have been talking things over," said Princess Olga. "Of course the only reasonable thing to do for Professor Morris is to return to America without delay. He has no right to remain here and possibly endanger the lives of so many young people, and there is nothing that he can do for us. Some day we will want help, and then we know that you will be all able to come to our aid. Ivan, we have been talking it all over with my husband, the prince, and we have decided that the best thing for you to do is also go." "Wait," she said, as Ivan shook his head. "My boy, our country is in ruins. Your father is at the front, we know not where. You cannot serve him by remaining here where you are, every moment in danger of being arrested and held as a prisoner or worse. Your estates are in ruins, but notwithstanding, you are, after your father, the head of your house. You owe to Poland the one thing you can do for her. You must preserve and safeguard your life, and you must go to the university where Professor Morris is such an eminent instructor. You must learn statesmanship. Some day, Ivan, Poland will need you. One chance have you here now, in this stricken land. I want you to go, Ivan. We will take the responsibility, and I want you to take these jewels and use them for your expenses and education." She held out a glittering handful of priceless gems. "No," said Professor Morris firmly. "Princess, you will need all you have. It happens that I have plenty of money, and we live very simply, so there is enough and to spare for the true children we hope to take with us." "Two?" said the princess. "The baby," said the professor. "I confess the needs of an infant seem too complex and difficult to me to cope with, but my daughter entertains no fears and insists upon taking the little fellow with us." "It's a girl, father," corrected Evelyn. "Ah, yes," said the professor, bowing. "I believe you did say that he was a girl." "I have told him at least a dozen times," said Evelyn in a whisper to Warren. "I suppose we've got to take her along no matter what he is," Warren whispered back. "However," said the professor, glancing reprovingly at the children, "there is plenty of money, in reason, and if Ivan prefers, we will keep an account of his educational expenses, and at some future date he can repay what I shall deem necessary to expand for him." "That is better," said the princess. She turned to Ivan. "You will go, Ivan?" "Yes," said Ivan. Then sadly, "But I wish I could see my father." "It is indeed hard," said the princess. "We feel that he must be unhurt forever, and I know that he will be so relieved and glad to know that you are in a place of safety. So that is settled." She smiled. "Now there is one more thing to be done. I have here a permit from the general in charge of the city. It gives us safe conduct on the roads to Warsaw and return, to get the baby. I have arranged for one of the nurses to go with the new chauffeur and Warren. I will take part of her duties, and Evelyn may assist me. She will get the baby and bring it here to us. They can go tonight and return tomorrow. All will be ready for your departure, if in the meantime Professor Morris can arrange to get your passports and your sailing privileges." "It sounds easy," said Warren to Evelyn. "When do you suppose we'll start?" "As soon as the car is ready," said the princess. "Get wraps for yourself, Warren. The nurse is ready, and she has everything needful for the baby." "Oh, Warren, be careful," begged Evelyn. "I declare I have half a mind to go with you." Warren laughed. "I have a whole mind that you will not," he said, patting her shoulder. "You stay right here and don't go out of the place, and keep father and Ivan and Eleanor where you can see them all the time. And if we are not back by noon tomorrow, don't begin to worry. Just lay our delay to a puncture or something of that sort. We won't be molested. The paper from the general is as good as a regiment of men. You had better believe that no one would dare hurt us or even detain us while I have that to show him." "Well, be careful just the same," begged Evelyn. "I surely will," promised Warren. Everything went as smoothly as Warren had anticipated. The trip to Warsaw was without a hitch. Again and again they were stopped by soldiers, and each time the paper from the commanding general acted like magic. Indeed, they were more than once assisted on their way, or directed to short cuts. In Warsaw it was the same. Warren, however, avoided that part of the city where he thought he might come in contact with Captain Handel, and driving by another route, approached the house of the neighbor who had so kindly taken care of the homeless little waif. The child was safe and well, having suffered less than they had feared from its terrible experience. With 1,000 thanks and promises to write, Warren left the good motherly woman and started on the return trip. They slept at an obscure little village that night in peace. The town had been overlooked in the tempest of war, and was untouched. At the inn they found good food and plenty of it. In the morning, when they started, They found every available part of the car crammed with offerings for the wounded soldiers. The chauffeur had spent a busy evening talking to the horrified villagers, and it is to be believed that the terrors he had witnessed in Lodz and everywhere else did not lose in the telling. So there were all sorts of offerings for the wounded, bread and dried fish and cheese, and money, sometimes gold, sometimes a single kopeck wrapped in scraps of paper, written over with heartfelt prayers of pity. There was scarcely room for the passengers to crowd in the car. Warren took the wheel, and the chauffeur, still the hero of the occasion, stood on the running board and waved his cap and called his farewells as they were in sight. The baby slept most of the time. It was a good baby, and Warren began to regard it with less distrust. They reached Lodz without accident, and as they drew up at the palace, now only a hospital, Warren's watch stood at 12. It had been a wonderful trip. Everything was going well. The prince was stronger, and his wife, the beautiful princess, was smiling happily. All that day and the next, the professor and the three boys went from office to office and back again to the army headquarters, getting the necessary papers. It was a difficult matter to get everything adjusted, but finally it was done, and there was no longer any reason for them to remain. They said goodbye to the princess and her children, and at last they started on the journey home. It was a time to be remembered as long as they lived. All of Europe was plunged in gloom. Even the neutral countries they touched or crossed in their roundabout way were oppressed by such sorrow that it was almost as bad as war. Reaching a seaport at last, they secured passage on a slow American boat, and it was not until they watched the shore receding from their view that they actually believed that they were on the way home. "Just the things we've seen coming over from Lodz would fill a book," said Warren to the group at the rail. "I wouldn't want to read it," said Jack, shuddering. "Nor I," said Evelyn. "Oh, boys, you don't know how funny you look in the clothes you have on." "What's the matter with my clothes?" said Warren, looking down at the very short trousers and the very long coat he was wearing. "I don't see but what I am all right. But doesn't Jack look cute? Kind of Lord Fauntleroy effect." Everyone stared at Jack, who looked himself over in surprise. "It is all they had at the store we went to that would fit me. I tried to turn those pants up, but they keep coming down." Everyone laughed at Jack, stooped and once more tried to turn up the loose trousers which enveloped his slim legs. Left to themselves, they reached halfway to the ankles, so Jack, who was used to knickerbockers, had carefully rolled them up to his knee. The result was that most of the time one leg or the other hung dismally down its full length. His jacket was a short roundabout, something like an Eton jacket, and his shirt was soft and frilled. "I don't see why we didn't just wear the things we had on," he complained. "I guess not," said Warren. "Those work clothes? Why, Jack, you see how dressy we are now? We look like somebody, a bunch of 'em. We have got sample clothes from half the countries in Europe. See how neutral that makes us? Take yourself, Jack. Your feet are Polish, and your pants are German, and the top of you looks Dutch. Is it?" "My cap came from home," said Jack furiously, "and so did my face. The minute we got out here away, I am going to yell hurrah for America as loud as I ever can." "Wow!" said Warren. "Excuse me, Jack, old fellow. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. We are all in the same fix as far as clothes go. Even Evelyn looks a little queer. All the world is a little queer, he quoted, and thee is a little queer. Safe on board ship, our party found that they were utterly tired out. They slept hour after hour. They were furiously hungry. The days went swiftly, without accident. Professor Morris, true to his new resolutions, spent a great part of each day with his children, and they found him a most delightful and amusing companion. He developed an alarming fondness for the baby, which he persisted in calling him. He was fond of holding the quiet little creature, but after one of his lapses into the forgetfulness of the past, he happened to think of something he wanted to do, so he laid his newspaper in Evelyn's lap, and before she could stop him, he placed the baby firmly in a waste paper box head down. After that, Evelyn watched him. They had brought a young refugee with them as nurse for the baby, so Evelyn was not burdened with too much care. The boys played games and made plans and wrote letters. Ivan commenced a diary. He said he would never be able to remember every single thing that was happening and going to happen, and he didn't want to forget it. Warren planned to have an evening with the Home Scouts and tell them all that had occurred. "And you will be Exhibit A," he declared, clapping Ivan on the shoulder. The voyage drew to an end, as all fortunate voyages will. The last night came clear and fine. There was a stir of joyful anticipation on the great ship. Everybody packed up what trifles they had been able to bring away with them. Everybody talked and exchanged addresses and said goodbye. The day of landing is always, too, full and confused for anything of that sort. Once more the professor's manuscript seemed to him to be a thing of value. He picked it up and put it down 1,000 times. It was a relief to everyone when the hour grew so late that even the most restless turned in and went to sleep, or at least tried to. At gray dawn, Ivan was aroused by Warren shaking him. "Get up, Ivan, get up!" he cried. "I can see it." The boy was shaking violently, and his teeth chattered. "What ails you?" said Ivan, speaking in Polish. "See what?" Warren answered in English. "America! Home! The little old United States!" A dry sob choked him. "Oh!" he said. "I didn't know I felt like this. Hurry up, old scout. Dress and let's get out." Voices sounded through the ship. People stirred and hurried with their dressing. It was as though a shock of electricity had stirred them. Certainly there had been no spoken call. As the boys hurried to the deck, the risen sun, a ball of gold, blazed like a celestial blessing, a flood of glory on the marvelous shoreline ahead. Warren rushed forward, but Ivan, without a look, turned and made his solitary way to the stern of the ship, and there all alone, looked away over the empty sea. For long he gazed. His eyes were filled with tears. "Goodbye, my father," he said. "Goodbye, my country. I will come back to you." He flung his hand out in a passionate gesture of farewell. Then, with a last look, Prince Ivan, homeless, countryless, and fatherless, slowly turned, and the boy Ivan went soberly to join Warren, who, crazy with joy, hung yelling over the rail at the prow. Before them, like the vision of an enchanted land, rose the wonderful shoreline of the harbor, and before them, nearer and nearer, clearer and clearer, the Statue of Liberty, wise, strong, majestic, with only the true majesty of earth on her beautiful brow, the majesty of freedom and of truth. They had reached America. End of chapter 12. Recording by Kangaroo 692. End of the Boy Scouts in Front of Warsaw, or In the Wake of War, by George Durston.